This is literally the worst farming sim I've ever played. I know how that sounds. The title is not clickbait, I promise. I just got done saying I'm only gonna play games that make me happy, and I mean that. This game isn't great, objectively, I think, but I remember playing it a lot and I remember it fondly. In fact, it was the first farming sim I ever played. Not this one specifically, this one is a remake based off of this one. Harvest Moon, A Wonderful Life. For a couple systems, but I played the GameCube version. This game, titled Story of Seasons now, actually for various reasons I won't get into, is a rather faithful remake. This entry and its remake are actually so much more different than the entries that came out prior to it that it's kind of known as a black sheep. Time passes when you're in buildings, characters actually age, there are no minigame festivals, and your character doesn't wear a hat. But I want to re-experience this, I want to compare it to what I remember, and we'll find out if it's really the best, worst farming sim I can recall. Character creation is definitely new. I played with the idea of coming up with something unique, but honestly you can't improve on whatever is going on with this hair, so I just changed the colors up a bit and slid right in. I will say, just being able to pick your gender is pretty fantastic. Back in my day, we had to buy 2 different games if you wanted the choice, and since one came out later, it was often better than the other, like Pokemon Boy and Girl. Wait a minute. To no one's great shock, our dad is dead, and we, his child, have come to work the farm because we met our father's old friend Takakura and settled down pretty quickly. There's everything you'd expect, the shipping box, the order ledger, our storage wardrobe, and our outside refrigerator. You know, the standard stuff. We adopt a dog, however, we're only allowed to keep one, so this guy over here, because obviously, his name is Binkus. We also already have a coop and a barn built already, which is a bit unusual, but anything to keep the grind down, I guess. Thanks, Dad. We also have our own cow already. Her name is Becky. Don't ask me why. If you know, you know. For some reason, we also get to name this place, even though my father, in theory, owned this farm at some point, but I go ahead and destroy his legacy and go meet the townsfolk anyway. Around innkeepers and their skinny son, Sporticus and his boy, and she. Oh my god, we must protect her at all costs. Look at her, she's adorable. Also, Molly, Gavin, Romana, Sebastian, Lumina, Chris, acoustic guitar, Angst, Vesta, Matthew, and default romantic interest. We're also given a camera. Wait, don't do that. Well, with irreversible damage done to our corneas, we hallucinate some tiny people and wake up the next morning. There are already a lot of differences to see compared to the old version and other Harvest Moon / Story of Seasons games. I'm going to be using the titles interchangeably, by the way, sorry. First, I don't actually need to feed the dog. Takakura will do it every day despite claiming he doesn't really like dogs. He's literally that dad and dog meme. There's also only 10 days per season, which is shockingly low, even if the days do seem a little longer than I'm used to for this type of game. In the original game, there was also a third, more fertile field in the very back of our farm, but in the remake here we only have 2. One is pretty bad quality, the other is okay. I seem to recall fruit not being affected by soil quality, so we're gonna plant our tree here. But the biggest difference by far is the lack of a day-by-day structure. In most of these games, including Stardew Valley, each day is a nice, easy cutoff for what you need to get done. You can milk your cow once a day, water your plants, give one gift, that type of thing. Not so in this one. Time constantly moves forward, and if you accomplish something earlier in the day, you can actually get away with doing things twice. I think this is best demonstrated by watering your crops. You can actually see them become unwatered in real time. But before we can even water them, we'll need to plant the seeds we were given. Over here, we'll just make 2 perfect squares so we can... Also, I'm not sure what fertilizer does yet, so we're just going to throw it on the tree. With my lack of knowledge being showcased in my early gameplay here, you might be wondering if I even played the other version. The answer is yes, but to be honest, I didn't really do much. I had one big complaint about this game, it's that there really isn't much to do. You could say this for a lot of farm sims, but the valley in this game is shockingly small. You can fish, deal with crops, deal with animals, do the archaeological dig, as well as befriend everyone, but you don't have to. As I mentioned before, characters age in this game, and it happens regardless of whether you have a successful farm or not. Your house upgrades come automatically. There's no need to buy a coop or barn, as I mentioned. You're free to just wander the valley eating mushrooms and grass you find in the dirt. You can upgrade plenty of things using huge amounts of money, but it all serves to make more money to buy upgrades with. All of which is to say that you're really going to want to set your own goals if you play this game, and I can think of no nobler pursuit than getting filthy rich. To do that, we're going to start with buying some more seeds, where every game begins. Watermelons and tomatoes will do us for now, as well as a few more fruit trees. I remember fruit trees kind of being broken. We basically spend all our energy doing this, and when I eat this herb I found on the ground... Okay, yeah, that was worthless. Well, it is a green clump of whatever. If I just pounded a fistful of cilantro, I'm sure it wouldn't do much for me either. Oh, right, one last thing I'm gonna have to work on is getting married. This is something I usually put off in any game, being the antisocial idiot I am, but again, we're playing the black sheep of the series. If we fail to get married by the end of the first year, the game is over. Takakura will kick us out. Our bloodline will literally not survive the winter. So we better start throwing some gifts around. Luckily for us, we meet Molly right outside our farm. She invites us for a quick chat, and I riz her up as best I know how, silently staring. She trauma dumps on me, which I'm pretty sure is first base, and says we should get to know each other better. Unluckily, immediately after, we're sucked into the second event with this dude named Rock. His name is Rock. That's like one step away from dirt. This guy is all about being lazy and doing nothing with his life. While I do not agree with your philosophy, sir, I will respect your right to do so. He also says we should hang out, and I give him that, oh yeah, sure, thing you do when you want to agree to something, but you know in your heart of hearts it's never going to happen. We're also introduced to the request board, which I'm fairly certain is new, but I have no memory of this. It does provide some much-needed direction to this game, giving you something to accomplish each month in return, raising your friendship level with everyone. As for actual wife goals, Cecilia here wants a tomato. Molly did say we should hang out, but I gotta be honest, there's one destination I have in mind. The villa. Look, I'm a knight. This is basically a castle, which basically makes her a princess. I mean, look at her. She sounds so robotic.
This is the ideal season to spend time outdoors, is it not? Do you enjoy farm work?
It's like I'm talking to one of those AI girlfriends YouTube keeps advertising to me. Like she has no connection with human emotions. She's perfect. So naturally, I do what makes the most sense. I sprint across the entire valley to stuff my pockets with flowers, which she loves, by the way, in case you doubted me. And yes, of course, I stopped by to give Nina a flower as well. I'm not a monster. I also tried to milk Becky a second time that day, but I guess I didn't wait long enough because she was not having it. So I put her back in the barn and celebrate my first successful day as a farmer by falling unconscious until exactly 6 a.m. Now, nobody panic. I'm not going to give you a day-by-day rundown of my playthrough. I just wanted to show you what a common day looked like. The next day, we managed to fulfill one of the requests. He claims it's milky soup, but it's just hot milk. The only ingredient is milk. We meet Nami, another bachelorette, who is also obsessed with Nina, and would be perfect if my heart wasn't already set on the robot princess. Find out you can train your dog to do tricks, but Binkus was not having that. Fair enough, little buddy. Cecilia and Vesta come to say hi. I noticed that it's snowing in the spring, which is a nice touch. The seasons overlap quite a bit in this game, and it's a cool difference than the absolute dominant seasons that these games tend to have. Then the game goes out of its way to make sure that you know Cecilia is into you. Remember when I said you lose the game if you don't get married by year 1? Well, this is true, but Cecilia will always show up as an option to marry. If you aren't married by the end of year 1, she'll show up to your house and confess her love, which is very sweet. But she's not a prince. Anyway, money. Money is what we need, and I think the way to do it is with fruit trees. I remember them being absolutely busted, but more importantly, once grown, the trees require no daily maintenance from me. Passive income is actually the dream here. But until then, I will need some form of daily income, and in order to afford the best cow, a whopping 50,000 gold, or G, whatever G stands for, dollars. But I do have a plan. We can purchase a male for half of that amount. And when two different breeds breed, then it's a 50-50 shot of them becoming either breed. Meaning with some luck, I can stock my barn wall to wall with star cows for the low, low price of half of one star cow. It'll be a long game, but I am determined to see it through. But for now, it's milk, water crops, run around, talk to people, water crops, repeat. I thought the watering was really awful at first. You have this intense magnet that just kind of jerks you all over the place while you're trying to get water on them tomatoes. But I eventually realized if you stand perfectly still and just mash the button, you'll slide over to the nearest unwatered spot in a move that I imagine has to be intentional. Side note, this path across the river up here was not in the original game, and it's very appreciated to avoid using the only bridge that existed in the original game. We are also introduced to Van, a man so large that he's always sweating. Always. Even in the freezing rain in the winter, this man is dripping with his own moisture. He opens up his shop every 3rd and 8th day, and this is how you upgrade your tools in this game. There's no ore to gather or blacksmith in the game. It's all time and usage based. Using your tool 50 times, then being in at least summer of year 1, for example, is how you get copper tools. Strangely enough, using your tools seems to be shared over all of your main farming tools. I could upgrade my sickle without swinging it a single time, for example, but not your fishing rod. And the first upgrade for the rod is 50 fish. Here's how long one takes. Certainly not the longest, but who has time to catch that many fish? The final upgrade requires 500 fish, so I don't think we'll be seeing that. I give cooking a try and immediately vow to never cook again. I also try to go to help at the dig site because there isn't really much else to do when it's raining. You can't water crops. But when it is raining, Carter here is in a bad mood, so I'm not allowed to help him, meaning that the game takes away 2 of the 4 things we can do when water falls from the sky. Great. I do eventually go examine this mountain pass leading out of the village as well. Back on the GameCube, this allowed you to connect with friends of Mineral Town on the Game Boy Advance. I don't remember the specifics, but I remember thinking it was really cool. In this, it doesn't appear to do anything except waste my time, or so I thought. Then it clicked. This advances time by 6 hours. This is actually huge. On days when there's very little to do, but I want to milk the cows in the evening or reapply fertilizer or some such, it's a godsend to be able to skip forward some hours. When we finally do get to the dig site, it's just as underwhelming as I can remember. It's mostly this, just waiting to get something you can sell or gift. Flora and Carter love to get in your way. It is a nice boost to income, though, for the time being, and once a year you can find a tablet that advances the sort of archaeology plot. It goes nowhere as far as I know, but hey, anything to give me any goal. It's here I discover a huge boost to my non-existent cooking ability. You can break into people's houses and they just have recipes all over the walls. And while I'm doing this, I rediscover another disturbing element. The original had no way of easily tracking friendship, like this menu. So in order to see how the candidates felt about you, you had to violate their privacy and find their diaries. A hilarious, disturbing element that crosses over to the remake for no reason other than accuracy to the original game. So between gifting stuff to Lumina and Nina and dealing with a request or two and digging, my tomatoes finally come in and we can see what kind of income we're dealing with. Oh, this is going to be a very long grind. Luckily, when Van shows up, he also works as a way to sell our goods, meaning we don't have to rely on just the shipping box. The fossils help immensely, making our first almost 5 grand. We go ahead and blow 1,000 of that on this brush. Good thing we did too, because Becky was starting to look a little rough. Using our newfound wealth, we could afford to plant an entire field with crops, meaning we're about to make as much as we can from this at the moment. The next time we see Lumina, she's playing the piano. Even though I walked in by myself, somehow Rock slides in directly behind me. I don't know what he's doing, because when I tell her to have some fun with it, he just leaves. I'm serious, look, 0 frames of hesitation, he's just out of there. We get our first robot trauma lore dump, signifying that we are now friends. She stores the memory on her hard drive. I do also eventually learn that fertilizer is probably best used on the field, so you can grow grass that your cute animals can actually eat. Becky likes me right now, but might not when she runs out of food. Considering my crop potential is maxed out at the moment, I decided to get Becky a friend to hang out with. Another basic cow for the barn, just to double my milk for the time being. She arrives and we name her Erin. Don't ask why. If you know, you know. It's almost summer, so I decide to plant a banana tree. I'm ready to keep working at it, but I'm interrupted by the little guys again. They found a blue feather, and if you're a fan of the series, you know what this is. Just in case Takakura spells it out for us, we gotta give this to our intended marriage partner. That's still a ways off, so we'll just smash it into our pocket for now. Nothing can go wrong with that. After another meeting with Lumina, she explains she's become fascinated by the number 2. No longer does she think in 1s and 0s. Our first fruit harvest begins, and with some minor assistance, we get our first oranges and peaches, and I was right, they do give quite the pretty penny, and they require basically no attention at all. But each tree does only give 16 fruit before flowering and waiting until the next year, which is okay. They seem to be nerfed a little, but it doesn't matter, we have the cow plan. And also, we're invited to the fireworks festival. We're asked to choose a date, and there's only 2 people I talk to in the whole town, and since I can't invite Nina, I choose Lumina, who obliges by showing up immediately from off-screen. She describes how stunning they are, and I decide to shoot my shot. See if a robot can truly feel feels. And she runs away. Well, time to move to another farm and start over. In order to make this easier for us, Takakura obtains us a horse, truly my hero. Unfortunately, our plans for escape are stalled when our fearsome pup viciously attacks Molly, and we're forced to make sure she's okay before we can leave. But also our tomatoes are ready, so I might as well harvest them. Finally get a grape tree and a second apple tree to fill out our tree field. Also, Becky and Aaron need brushing. Alright, whatever, I'll stay. We're still missing a space for a final tree, but you might have noticed I said second apple tree. We've run out of variety, so I just put a second apple tree here, since it's almost apple season. I also want to make better use of fertilizer, both in my field and on my trees, for that sweet, sweet passive income. But buying fertilizer is expensive, so I've got my eyes on the fertilizer maker and one of them fancy fertilizer spreaders. Our income is still not looking great yet, but I have faith. First the starble, then the world, as they say. We managed to eke out a few turnips and can complete some summer requests. I'm quickly realizing this doesn't really get you great rewards, usually more seeds. The most useful one was the first one I did. It netted me 5 eggs that I can't otherwise get right now. I haven't even set foot in the coop. But at least a few villagers have asked me for eggs or egg-based soup since I've gotten them. With almost $7,000 in my pocket, a few more harvests and we can have this wrapped up by autumn. Maybe get our first calf by year end. When I finally muster up the courage to visit Lumina, her butler intercepts us and I make peace with this life. However, he just wants me to sample one of his dishes. And on the way there, we overhear Lumina talking about being in love. Ah, we lost, fellas. There is no other way to interpret this. We blew it. We're gonna have to leave, move to another farm, and start over. But we did just get paid. To my great surprise, as I'm soliciting Van for a ride out of this country, he's selling copper tools. This will certainly help in my next life, but is it worth my hard-earned money? We are almost halfway there. I decided the milker for the star cows we're definitely going to have in the watering can because I have many crops. Also, the pasture is finally full of grass. The cows love hanging out outside, so now I can let them out without fear of I'll forget to feed them. But before I can get too excited about it, Takakura tells me about a new item on the market, a seed maker. This is huge. It turns every crop you make into 2 of that seed. But listen, it makes it of the same rank. Meaning, in theory, from a single S-rank crop, we can make enough S-rank seeds to never need fertilizer again. This is not really feasible, but this does make the fertilizer maker even more enticing. Never again will I have to buy seeds. We'll have to see how that develops when I get around to trying to make an S-rank crop. Maybe strawberries. I don't know what an S-rank strawberry looks like, but who could resist? And so here we are, the first day of autumn. I think it's time to switch it up. Sweet potatoes out first. This was a mistake. Strawberries should have gone down, but that's okay, I can fix this. Our apples and grapes should be ready soon. This is shaping up to be a very profitable month if I can play my cards right. Before I can lock in, I am interrupted by this guy. Look at him. I totally forgot he was in the game. He's a crazy scientist type. How could I forget about you? I haven't interacted with him my entire first year up until now. We must be friends. And besides that, very little shenanigans happen. I make sure the crops are watered, the animals are fed, I spend every spare moment in the mine searching for valuables. I drop by Darrow's place every once in a while, and by coincidence, he loves the stuff I'm finding at the dig site, so I let him keep a few prime specimens. He couldn't be happier. Even our first hauled van gets us very close. We have our first snowfall, and I was worried about the animals, but Becky could not care less about it. We're also invited to the Harvest Festival, and I contemplate not going, but this is probably the most interactive one so far since we're allowed to bring something to put into food. Naturally, I bring the only thing my farm has to offer, Becky's sauce. God, that's a terrible sentence. As I'm doing my rounds, Lumina uses her robot cloaking ability to ambush me outside her castle and takes us to the beach, or rather makes us take her to the beach. This could only be a good sign, right?
I've come to think of you as the sibling I never had.
Oh, it's over, bros. We're so cooked. While I'm dying on the inside, this guy Gordy comes down and stands next to me, and we have a good long look out over the water, imagining how simple it would be to walk into the wet and never return. On the way back, we visit Daryl, and he's upset, as usual. Apparently, the seed maker you can buy from the ledger is but a shoddy copy of the one he makes, and to prove he's superior, he installs one for free at the farm! We get a free seed maker! I have no idea if this was in the previous game or not, but I'm not complaining one bit. Maybe this whole friends thing is a better idea than I thought. Finally, we can begin phase 1 of the plan. This is Bucket. He's our ticket to fortune. Sadly, he's a wee little guy right now, so we're gonna have to wait. But don't worry, buddy. There is so much work in your future. At this point, I probably should have thought about trying to make some S-rank crops, but I was too in my previous rhythm to even consider it. Plus, I just spent all my money on Bucket. The end of autumn approaches, and we still got about 10K. I consider saving up for fertilizer maker already, but instead I get 2 little sheepies. Meet Yo-Yo and a key. If you know, you know. Look at a key. He's got a little pink afro. That's actually so perfect. These guys start off small, but they grow pretty quick, and even the lowest quality wool nets us 3,000. It's insane. They can be sheared twice a month and eat only half of what my cows do. Maybe I could reevaluate if I wasn't already in so deep. And I think it's time to face it, guys. We've entrenched ourselves too deep to be able to move at this point. We're gonna have to let our feelings be known and tell the robot how we feel. I don't care that she's made of a solid titanium alloy, or that I can't leave her out in the rain. I would like her to leave her multi-million-dollar manor and come live with me in my tiny one-room house. To my great surprise, she actually seems excited about it, but her grandmother is not having it. Or so she says. It's actually a joke. But I do have to admit I was worried for a second.
Now go live happily ever after, or I'll drop kick the teeth out of your mouth.
I proposed in autumn, hoping that we'd avoid the awkward winter wedding, but I'm also told that Lumina needs to be educated about married life. Makes sense. I guess that's the kind of update you don't install in advance. We do also get to do a little date with her, which is pretty cute. I decided that since Becky likes me more and thus gives me higher quality milk, we're gonna get Aaron to have this baby, since milk production will halt for a time. Winter gives us a new outfit, but not as dramatic a change to the scenery as I thought it would. Unlike most farm sims, there are actually winter crops in this game. I imagine that's because there's only 40 days in a year? They have to let you get income somehow. I also finally get on the ball of making some S-rank crops. Just 2 as a test, because I don't know at this point in time if my theory about the seed maker is correct yet. Spoiler, it is. A slightly concerning moment when I come out of the house one day is Daryl yelling at my pregnant cow about revenge. I don't know what happened moments before I showed up, but I don't have time to question him before Aaron just about murders him. We snag ourselves the rest of the copper tools, including brand new clippers for our sheep. I also mismanaged my stamina for the first time, and we get to see what happens.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Actually, you just wake up a few hours later. No big deal. I think it affects your maximum stamina for next day or something. With my rhythm established, winter moves by really, really fast. It's really only interrupted by the Starlight concert, and by concert, I mean this one guy noodling on his guitar. But at least there's Robot Princess, appearing from off-screen the moment she's mentioned, as usual. We witness a shooting star and are asked for a wish. I definitely did not ask for money and only got $400. I definitely wish for something else. And back on the farm, unfortunately, Erin does not have her baby before the winter is over. Meaning that if you want to see a sequel, you're going to have to tell me how much you want to see it in the comments. We do manage to get our hands on a buttload of carrots though, and eventually a couple S-rank strawberries. If we play our cards right, by the end of year 2, we could be growing only S-rank crops that we supply ourselves. Also, Little Key drops us golden wool, which sells for twice that which he gave us before, a shocking amount. But soon enough, the year ends, and Illumina and I, wearing nothing but our default outfits, are married. We proceed to tell everyone in town, which frankly is mortifying. Even worse, when asked about a nickname for Lumina to call me, I looked on Google and saw Pookie. I thought this was funny, and thought she would only say it once in a while, but I must have mashed past the prompt and accidentally overwritten something. I have made a horrible mistake. But at least the 3 little colorful guys made us a beautiful display. Lumina is incapable of kissing, so we just hold hands and make our oaths. Of course, I didn't write any, so I just hit her with the yeah, me too. She does ask about having a family, and I tell her it doesn't matter if we had a boy or a girl. Plus, she's a robot, and I'm fairly certain she's incapable of such a feat anyway. Uh-oh. How?